Hey guys, we are here in Vicenza, Italy, and we're going to be checking out two local fish stores today, kind of seeing how they compare to America and just in general seeing if they're any good. So we're going to jump right into number one and then we're going to finish here with this koi pond. Let's go. So this is the last stop of my trip to Europe, where I started off attending Interzoo in Nuremberg, Germany, where I saw some incredible setups, aquascapes, new products, including this beautiful 6,000 liter African River aquascape from New Wave Concepts. Absolutely beautiful, and I love this Imbu puffer. And I also really like this rainbow fish aquarium, and just so many things from this show alone really inspired me for my future setups, and you never know, I might get rainbow fish in the future. But after my time in Germany, it was time for a bit of a road trip where we drove through the Alps all the way through Austria, a bit of Slovenia, down into Italy. Our first stop was in Venice, where it was just a beautiful, unique city. It was really awesome to see. But then we traveled about an hour west and we stayed in Cittadella, Italy, which had these incredible walls and the moat around it protecting the city. Just a really cool old school vibe to the city. And we stayed here because it was really close to the headquarters of CADE, where we did a full factory tour of CADE's headquarters, seeing how some of the best aquarium pumps, filters, and wave makers are made. That was in Pozzoglione, Italy. But because we were traveling around northern and central Italy, we definitely wanted to see if there's any fish stores in this area, because I was really curious to see what fish stores would look like in Europe, and specifically in Italy. So within the 2-hour radius of where we were, these were two of the biggest fish stores that we could find. But both of them had some pretty unique characteristics, and I thought it was really fun to compare it to some of the American stores I visited. So we're going to check out these two different stores, starting with our first here in Vicenza, Italy, Garden Vicenza Verde. And as you'll see right away when we walk into these stores, it was very unique. It is not your typical fish or pet store. There was a ton of home and garden, patio furniture, grills, anything you need for the outdoors, your home and garden. It was all here. It was definitely not just a fish store. The actual fish and aquariums were in the back corner of this store, so we had quite a bit to walk through just to get to the aquariums. And this fish store number one was definitely smaller than the next one we'll visit, but right away you'll see this unique aquarium with koi and goldfish in the middle, and then it's surrounded by all the different tanks that you might see at any other fish store, with some small tanks holding community fish, angelfish, discus, some cichlids, and they had a little bit of a saltwater selection here, probably better than store number two, but it really wasn't robust when it comes to saltwater. They did have some Oscars, which obviously is one of my favorites. One thing that I thought was interesting is these Oscars were pretty expensive. I think it was about 40 euros, which is pretty expensive for an Oscar considering they're a pretty common fish, especially in America. There was a couple yellow labs, some mbuna, some blood parrots, but overall they didn't have a ton of cichlids at this store outside of a couple of the main display tanks that you'll see in a second. And yeah, they do have some dry goods, some filters and pumps, but pretty limited selection in general compared to American stores. But they do have some CADE pumps here. Always a good thing. And then maybe both fish stores had one saltwater display aquarium, but definitely the highlight of store one was this big planted angelfish tank with a beautiful aquascape, and it had some interesting angular panels there. So 6 panels to this aquarium, and it had some angelfish, some cardinal tetras, denizen barbs, some schooling fish, and just really cool aquascapes with different colored substrates, some lava rock I believe, and just a lot of different plants. I've said many times on the channel how angelfish tanks, especially planted ones with schooling fish, are just one of the all-time setups that you could do, even as small as a 40-gallon, but you can go really big like this and just make an awesome community. And I think this tank alone just made it worth visiting this store. We're gonna maybe go see if we can find another fish store that has more cichlids. They did have some mbuna, some yellow labs, some Oscars, but maybe we'll find some better cichlids at the next store. Okay, so our second stop is Viridia, and this has a pretty big koi pond I know, and I think has a better cichlid selection, so we will check that out now, see if it's true. So walking into fish store number 2, you'll see a lot of similarities. This store was a little bit bigger, But again, the theme of just having arts, crafts, home and garden, patio furniture, and really everything you need for the outdoors. And again, this was kind of in the back where the aquarium started. This store had a few more setups that were ready to take away if you wanted to actually buy an aquarium and equipment. And more CJ products. Jay Wilson would be happy. And it also had some similarities to the first store, including a koi and goldfish tank that had some unique dimensions. This one was a tall one compared to the low boy in the first store, but also the display aquariums included a planted tank. This time it was discus instead of angelfish. So right here we have a really good looking discus tank with some plants, a little bit of algae, some driftwood, but some good looking discus here, some corydoras, Romeo's tetras. It's a good looking little display tank here, and then right behind me there's another more heavily planted discus tank. So I do like those, even though the discus are a smaller size. They look pretty good. And then the rest of this store here, you just have your standard tanks around the outside. There are some cichlids I'll go take a look at right now, but overall it is a smaller aquarium store, which is kind of the theme that I've seen here, where the pet stores are kind of shared with aquarium stores and home and garden. So it's very interesting. And I really like these discus and the two display tanks in this store. And it was right next to the koi goldfish tank and a big holding tank for live plants, which both stores had. And then right here we also have some live plants, so a decent selection there. Got some tall Valsinaria and Anubias, so it's actually kind of a better plant selection than I've seen in some American stores. But let's check out the fish next. But yeah, the selection here was pretty decent. You could find kind of the standard fish, community fish and cichlids that you would find at most big stores, including assorted Mbuna and African cichlids. There was a jewel cichlid, some small peacocks and haps. There were even some Richardii cichlids, which actually isn't all that common sometimes. They had some good looking rainbow fish. They had some really good looking angelfish with some different tetras. So you could definitely mix and match and find a decent setup with the selection here. It just wasn't anything really out of the ordinary, I would say. Something that stood apart for being in Europe versus America. It was pretty standard when it came to just the overall stocking and fish selection. And here's the big display saltwater tank, where it did look pretty good. Probably could have used a little bit of maintenance, but the coral looked good. I'm sure the fish were healthy. It looked fine. The overall selection of saltwater fish was not great. But overall, even though it was a smaller store with a smaller selection, the fish did look healthy. And again, you could get the basics here. And then we just have some small holding tanks for some different peacock cichlids at a decent size, some Mbuna, some plecos. It's kind of your standard selection when it comes to cichlids. And I would maybe compare it to like your PetSmart or your Petco back in the States. Maybe a little bit more of a variety, but overall similar selection in terms of community fish, a little bit of cichlids, and koi and goldfish. That's kind of the standard go-to, I would say. But I also think they have a big pond outside, so we'll check that out next. But maybe my favorite part of both stores was this giant koi pond that also had a ton of different turtles in here. Just a really nice ecosystem with lily pads, and it was surrounded by just areas where you could hang out and watch the fish. You could probably feed the koi and turtles. That's probably why they were so friendly to us. Man, these guys love us. I like turtles.
I like turtles.
So we're finishing up here with this big koi pond, which I really do like. It has a lot of turtles and some really big, nice looking koi. It's kind of a nice, relaxing area to just come out and hang out. But in general, I would say both aquarium stores were a bit underwhelming. It was kind of interesting to see how they were mixed in with home and garden and just patio furniture, anything outdoors, mixed in with pets. So it wasn't really just dedicated to fish, but some of those sections were a little bit small. But you could still find things like your community fish and your cichlids and some saltwater fish. And the selection was pretty small, but the fish did look healthy. And you could definitely get what you need there, but some of the American stores do seem to be much bigger. And I don't know if that's just the area being here in northern to central Italy, but that's just a couple of the fish stores that I experienced. And I'm curious if anyone has been to local fish stores around Italy, and if you had a better experience or a different experience, let us know down in the comment section. But thanks again for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.